Welcome to Your World in Agriculture for this February 25th, 2025. We are being joined by Chris Ward, a Brazilian farmer from Rondonópolis, Mato Grosso, one of the largest soybean and corn producing states in the country. And we're going to get right to it. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Mike. Pleased to join you on this program.
Let's get right to it. Bring us up to date on Mato Grosso's crop conditions, the harvest pace, and how it compares to last year. The market, of course, is moving on every sunshine or raindrop. Right now, all the focus is on Brazil and Argentina, and especially in your state of Mato Grosso. Give us a feel, Chris, for what the harvest pace is like and how things are comparing to last year. And we're just going to tell folks right up front that we're going to bring up some images of where you're from, Chris, and your farm and how where it's located. But go ahead and give us the update if you would.
Well, basically, this year the harvest is slightly behind what we would expected last year. This is due to the fact that we had more rain January and February than we did last year. Last year, most people had a drought. According to the latest numbers that I looked up this morning, 66% of the soybean area has been harvested in the state, and the yields are above average. It's a bit early to give final numbers, but certainly better than last year. The cotton acreage is basically all in the ground. There'll be a bit going on probably till the end of the month, but cotton is in, and corn is, as we know, it's usually only about 5 to 10% behind the cotton harvest because people with no-till practices plant right on the heels of the combine harvesters.
How much of your soybean crop has been harvested, and what kind of yields, preferably if you could convert them to bushels per acre for our viewers, but versus hectares, but what kind of yields have you seen on your farm this year?
Well, this year our farm is leased out at the moment, and I didn't plant. But on neighbouring farms and that, people are looking at yields around 60 bushels, 65 bushels, and better fields. But as the season progresses, of course, yields go up because the early maturing varieties, where they want to get the cotton planted, tend to yield less because they're short cycle varieties.
And the question becomes, Brazil's crop weather has varied this year. Should the market be as concerned about southern Brazil's crops as you hear about? Your Mato Grosso's crop, as I understand it, from if I'm hearing you correctly, Mato Grosso's crop is going to be a good crop. But what about the southern part of the country?
Well, the whole of the Midwest of Brazil is good, has a good crop this year. Now, there are certain concerns in the southern part of Mato Grosso do Sul and varying in Paraná, but certainly in the Rio Grande do Sul, which is, I think, the third largest soybean producer in the country, they've had lots of patches of big drought, and there are a lot of people who will have bad harvests.
And
So
not to interrupt you, but the folks Chris is talking about this area right here, this state, which is right below Mato Grosso, and then as you go south, uh, you get into those states that have drier weather this year. Go ahead, Chris.
yeah, so that's where we're seeing yield drops, but in total percentage, until the figures start coming out, because they harvest later. All right, we're looking at the southern part of Brazil. You'll see still green crop. They harvest right up to the end of March, middle of April, whereas in our part of the world, it's all over by really the 10th of March, because that's the shut-off window for having any second crop.
Well, let's take a look at the harvest in your state. This is a photo taken actually a couple of weeks ago, and it was uh, north of your farm in the northeastern part of the state of Mato Grosso. But again, as you mentioned, yields are around 60 some bushels per acre coming out of these fields, and some will be even larger than that, obviously, as the season goes along. A couple of other fields now. This is not so ready to be harvested because it's from the northeastern part of the country in the state of Piauí and what's known as the New Frontier. But again, these crops, as we flip through some of these pictures, these crops are in very large fields as well. And in fact, the farmer Wilson Marceline, Chris told me that it takes 12 days to plant these big fields. This is a 5,000 acre field that these crops are sitting, that are planted in. And for most U.S. Folks, this is amazing. These are huge fields. Some fields obviously are even larger than this field. But he said it in general with decent weather, they can plant this in 12 days, and their whole acreage, he said, they plant in about, it takes 45 days or so. But again, beautiful looking crops. And again, this is a corn crop in the northeastern part of the country. You can talk about how this is a full season corn crop right here. And right now in Brazil, they have 21% of this full season crop actually harvested. So this is a young full season corn crop right here that we're seeing. Again, this is in the northeastern part of the country. Also, last night, CONAB had estimated that the second corn crop, the safrinha corn crop, is about halfway planted, 53.6% planted, but they're expecting a 6.7% increase in production for that second year crop, or that second safrinha corn crop. Chris, talk about how Brazil's corn production has really gone up.
Well, as of course, animal production in this country has become the conversion of corn and into animal protein, be it chickens, pigs, or cattle, has become a major thing because selling corn with the freight costs is just not on. So you've got to realize an aggregated value. So that's why the consumption of corn is going up. And out of the north of the Mato Grosso and ports like Miritituba, and that they're exporting corn out to countries like China. So corn is in tremendous demand. I personally believe that in 10 years' time, we'll be producing more corn than soybeans. The expansion is so much because as the varieties get better, as the technology gets better, and it's more conversion done on it, then there's going to be more response to corn because it's better easily grown as a second crop if you have the rainfall.
Brazil's crop weather has varied this year. Again, March is expected to be dry, according to the forecast that I'm hearing. Now, give me a sense for how damaging to the crops will this be, and what areas will be hurt the most if March is dry in Brazil.
Well, as you know, Brazil is got almost from one end to the crop field to the other end is about 3,000 kilometers or nearly 2,000 miles. So you can't draw conclusions. But if it's dry in the south, um, it will affect the crops down there, like wheat and their corn, which comes the second crop. But in the Midwest, when you start getting into the cotton and the corn, which was planted earlier, a little less of an effect. We're used to not getting rain from April onwards. We like rain up to about the 15th of April, but you don't rely on too much rain after the 15th of April. It's not, reliable. The rain that comes in the second half of April has to come from a frontal system from the south, whereas during the summer months, we're getting intertropical weather that comes down off the Amazon and in that way. So when the convergence comes, that's when we get the rain in the Midwest.
Chris Ward, a Brazilian farmer from Rondonópolis in the state of Mato Grosso, one of the largest corn and soybean producing states in the country. I learned something today from you, Chris. I haven't heard this from anybody yet. You actually think that Brazil is going to plant and grow more corn than it will soybeans in 10 years?
Oh yeah, certainly in terms of volume. I mean, we're talking today the soybean crop this year about 170 million metric tons. I would think within 10 years we're doing over 200, 300 million metric tons of corn because it's converted into animal protein, and that's the big score.
Well, thanks again for your time today, Chris, and we wish you luck for the rest of the season of this year. And again, check in anytime here on Your World in Agriculture. We appreciate your insight.
I'm always free and willing to participate, and hopefully I can get my information up to date, and I'll make a point next time to have the numbers more on the tip of my tongue.
We'll check in with you again. Chris Ward, again, a Brazilian farmer from the state of Mato Grosso. Be sure to subscribe and like Your World in Agriculture for more farm content. For Chris Ward, I'm Mike McGinnis.
Cheers.